Welcome everybody. Thank you very much. Today we're live from Qatar. As you can see in the background, it's live from Qatar. We've got Harry Kane turning up later, who's going to tell me all about his property experiences. Meanwhile, we've got Darren, good morning. We've got Pete, of course, who walks the bricks, and Johnny, a regular on the show. And it's all about a property. Well, we're going to talk about the market as well. We're going to talk about mortgages, but Crowthorne, not exactly York, Manchester, Birmingham or London, but I know it well. It's a beautiful little town, almost a villagey feel about it, Johnny.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of a village within a kind of developed surrounding area. So yeah, we're going to come on to that after we do a little bit about who Joseph Mews are and our track record and you know, us as a business. We're going to talk particularly about, as you say, Manhattan Lofts, which is in Crowthorne, a little village within in you know, near distance to lots of jobs and lots of urbanization.
That's great. And Pete, welcome as always. You're going to give us some market insight.
Yeah, good morning. I know Crowthorne well. I worked at a bag shop for 3 years, which is you know, right next door to Crowthorne. Excellent place to go to, by the way.
Yeah, it is lovely. Woody trees, nice villagey feel. So, Johnny, tell us a little bit, first of all, for our viewers, and which we are talking about over 500 today. Tell us all about Joseph Mews and where you fit in and what you do.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Chris. Look, just to introduce myself, my name's Johnny Conran and I'm managing partner of Joseph Mews. And look, firstly, just to give you a bit of a history about us and our sort of our journey as a business. We started a long time ago with a vision from Andy Foote, who's our chairman, who wanted to start a property company whereby we're adding the element of customer service and the element of actually sort of looking after a client rather than an experience that he had buying a property in Spain, whereby he bought a property off plan, he put his money down, he was then left in the lurch, no communication, no help with sort of, you know, the idea of renting it or mortgaging or anything like that. And then he suddenly got a phone call saying, you need to pay the remainder of the deposit and that's it. So he wanted to build a business whereby that, you know, the customer service element of buying a property, which is incredibly stressful, as we all know, was kind of more of a handheld approach. And that comes from investing financially for us as a business to make sure that we can, you know, provide that service. And that's the emphasis on how we started. It was obviously then about finding the right stock and developers that we could trust. And our history has predominantly been with one developer called Seven Capital, who Andy became a part owner of many years ago and has grown that developer from, you know, a landowner in Birmingham, essentially, to now one of the market leaders or the market leader at their price point in the UK. They have a portfolio of £2.1 billion. They own various different entities, a construction company, media company, a bank. They're a huge beast and they've been a fantastic partner for us over the years in delivering property and distributing it overseas. So Joseph Mews was born out of the concept of doing the same thing, not just with that one developer, but out, you know, expanding and working with different developers, and that we knew we could trust. And that's sort of the main point. The UK is a safe market, or deemed a safe market, but there's a lot of people selling property without planning permissions, warranties, and all sorts of things that they shouldn't be doing. And so it is important that you find developers that you can trust and you know you can rely on. So to look at numbers, I mean, we've delivered 6,500 units already. And that's not a number to sort of, you know, to overlook. 6,500, that's how many units we have delivered. There's people living in them, they're constructed. It's very easy to sell properties and to show pretty pictures, but actually delivering them and doing what you say you're going to do in terms of rentals and achieving those kind of whatever its yields and growth is the hard part. That handover part is the hard part. And as I say, we've done this 6,500 times over our history, and we have 2,500 clients around the world. So, you know, it's tried and tested. And as I say, there isn't anybody in the market from overseas perspective that can boast what we boast there.
And a long record with Holborn property, of course, stretching back quite a number of years. So we've experienced your service, we've experienced the quality of the products already. So yeah, we're very much aligned with you.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, obviously we've worked with Holborn for a long time, and you know, I guess due diligence side from them has obviously, you know, enabled us to keep working together, and obviously other parties that come to the market that aren't, you know, perhaps so due diligent are the ones that have fallen by the wayside, which is you know, obviously good to see and important for investors to have more of a trusted sort of partner than what has existed in the market previously. Just a little bit about the name, just to give some history on the company, and we often get asked, you know, Joseph Mews, it's not really a sort of property name. And I think it's, you know, we like to sort of touch light on why we are called Joseph Mews and why we changed to this. And Andy Foote, who I mentioned, who's still part owner of Seven Capital, he's a well-known sort of figure, I suppose, in the industry in the UK from what he's achieved, not just in real estate, but in various other businesses around the world. But the biggest success that he will tell you is what you see on your screen now, is the brain tumor charity. It is, in fact, the biggest brain tumor charity in the world. And Andy started that nearly 20 years ago. He started it because, very sadly, his son Joseph got a brain tumor age 3 and very sadly passed away age 9. And when that happened, rather than you know, obviously dwelling, he decided to be proactive, and he wanted to change that for other families. So he started this charity, which, as I said, has grown to be the biggest in the world. It's taken the survival rate of children with the same cancer from 15% to 77%, which is largely down to Andy. So it's an incredible story. It's a sad story, but an amazing story. And this is Andy's swan song as a business. And one of our offices in the UK, our head offices, is a Mews house, and it's called Joseph Mews. And so we wanted to give legacy both to Andy and to Joseph. And so we named the company after him. So it gives some context. It's a sad story, but an amazing story nonetheless. To touch again on what I said earlier, look, our history has predominantly been with Seven Capital, but over the last 2 years, Andy and myself and the business, we were kind of going to the market and looking for partners whereby we could have that same relationship. So I think it's really important to stress that we don't work as an agent. So we don't just take loads of different developments and choose units, and if we sell them, great. If we don't, great. We have exclusive partnerships with these developers. So the only way that you can buy these properties from these developers is via Joseph Mews and our agents and our distributors, where we work exclusively. And so we commit financially. We pay for the marketing, we pay for the distribution, we pay for the managing of the tenants, the handover, the furniture. We do all of that for our clients, which in turn gives the developer us full exclusivity and full transparency with them. So it's important to mention that this idea of hurt from a development, as an agent, if you sell a property and it doesn't go well, you might have lost your reputation, but you've lost nothing else. For us, we not only lose our reputation, but it hurts us financially. So the due diligence, the box ticking, everything is a non-negotiable for us. We only deal with the best, with developers we know we can trust, that have the funding in place, that are going to deliver quality properties, that are going to be able to get mortgages, as an example. Sounds obvious, but there's a lot of developments selling that aren't going to be able to get mortgages. So all of these elements are non-negotiables for us, and all of those partners you see on those screen tick those boxes. Look, another element of buying a property is obviously, you know, especially when you're overseas, is how am I going to rent it? How am I going to get a mortgage? How am I going to, you know, manage it? All of these different questions. Who's going to represent me legally? And look, that's something that we've built an office around in the UK, whereby inevitably you need third parties, you know, from mortgages with Darren, from lawyers, who's going to represent me, from managing agents on the ground in all of these locations, who's going to rent the property for me. And that's what we do incredibly well. We have an office in the UK that holds your hand through everything, from being the liaison between you and, or from a mortgage perspective, for between you and the letting agent, between you and the lawyer. You're constantly dealing with Joseph Mews, and we're handling that. So this is something we're really proud of, and we feel we do better than anybody else in the industry because it's of necessity. We've sold obviously thousands of units over our time, and out of those units, half of those people are overseas, and so they need their hand held when it comes to this, because they're fundamental parts of buying a property and what make it stressful. So our job is to make it sort of as stress-free as possible. And again, look, we've got a commitment overseas. I'm in Dubai at the moment, but based between here and London. We're in South Africa, Singapore, Hong Kong. So our reach is global. And that's because there's a necessity for it, because, you know, the UK is the most invested market in the world. And so it's for us to show commitment in those locations to address that appetite. So look, I'm just going to touch briefly on what I just mentioned there, the UK market, where we are now, and sort of important things to remember in times of uncertainty, of which there seem to be a lot in recent years. I think this graph is a really good representation of what we're about to talk about. So this shows us roughly a 50-year history of the UK and how it's performed. And what it illustrates is how resilient the UK is as a market. The UK is the #1 invested market in the world, as I mentioned, more than the US, more than Germany, more than Canada. It's the #1 invested market in the world. And this is why, because you know that you can trust it in the background as an asset, as an investment, that as long as you don't need to escape and you're not looking at this as a short-term investment, which is the wrong way to look at it, you know that history has proven over a 15-year period, let's say, that property prices have double in the UK in a currency that is globally strong. You know, the pound has been weak recently, which has brought an opportunity, but globally it's always going to be strong, and that's the beauty of it. So how is it able to be so resilient? Well, the fundamentals in the UK are incredibly strong. Commercially, you have some of the biggest businesses in the world committed there, of course. Education, some of the best education in the world, constantly providing attraction for people to study there, to move there, to send their children there. Politically, I wanted to say the word stable, maybe the wrong word at the moment, but I think a politically safe environment is what's important to reiterate. And the big fundamental is the supply and demand imbalance. The UK is famous for not having enough properties. We're told that it's 120,000 at the moment, rising up to 300,000 over the next 5 years. So that lack of property, of delivery, means obviously that things like void periods, if you're buying in the right locations, are relatively unheard of. You know, you have, they're saying in the centre of Birmingham, as an example at the moment, that one of the agents was telling us that there's 5 people to each property at the moment. And, you know, that's not just Birmingham, that's generically in the UK. There's such a big rental demand and not enough property. And so that's what keeps driving the market. So if we look at a comparable, we look at what's happened in 08-09, the recession. Did the UK get affected by that as a market? Absolutely. But look at where we are now. Its resilience, its ability to bounce back is incredibly strong because of these fundamentals that are in place. I saw it described recently, the UK market, from Savills as the proverbial cockroach. They said, whatever you do to try and kill the UK market, you can't do it. And it's so true. And I believe that, you know, are we due a correction after what's happened over the last few years? You know, we were told everything would crash after Brexit. It didn't. We were told everything's going to crash during COVID. It hasn't. Are we due a correction? Potentially, yeah. There's also reasons to look at positive growth. But the important thing to remember is that with the UK market, it's not about your timing of that market. It's not about when am I going to buy that. I'm hearing here that there's going to be a 5%, you know, decrease. It's not about that. It's about your time within the market, because history has shown us time and time again that over that period of 12 to 15 years, that property prices double.
Johnny, just give you a little bit of a breather. I wanted to bring Pete in. He's probably the most well-read person I know when it comes to the property market. He scours the internet, he reads the papers, he gets magazines. Pete, what about you? What's your before we get on to the meat and potatoes and have a look at Crowthorne, what's your thoughts on the market?
I've just read all the latest reports as we come up to the 2023, which is right on us now. All the very large agents, your Jones Lang LaSalle, Savills, Knight Frank, all of those people have come up with their reports. And it's interesting, there is a common theme. I completely concur with what Jonathan's saying. We will see a slight correction, and that's what it is, a slight correction. There's an old adage in property, never try catching a falling knife when investing. Because if you look at this graph, if you were a trader, and I've got quite a few trader friends, you take out the mean average. If you strike a line through the highs and through the lows on that sinusoidal movement, that gives you a true indication of where we're going, where we are, and where it's been. So yes, 2008, 2009 was a little tsunami that hit us. But, you know, we have come back from it, and we've come back reasonably strong. Are we due that correction? As Johnny says, I completely agree. We may see, I think, a total of about 7% correction, but some of that's already been factored in. Now, my view is, if you take this site in Crowthorne, for instance, it's a great location, and it's protectionary. Within commercial property, we look at defendable territories, as they're called. So if a Lidl's moves into a particular town, then yes, if it's small, they're not going to be an Aldi. If it's big enough, they'll have an Aldi and a Lidl. If it's sufficiently big, they'll have an Aldi, a Lidl, a Marks and Spencers, and a Tesco's. But with this site that Johnny's promoting through, it's not going to be easy to replicate this in Crowthorne. And it is that village within an urban area. I love the site, and it's not going to go down a great deal. We may see a very, very slight correction. My view is 5%'s already gone from it, so it could go down another 2 or 3%. And do you know what? It'll be back another 2 or 3% within 2 years. That's my view.
Thanks, Pete. That's brilliant. Right, Johnny, let's have a look. See where you go next. Don't forget, we're live from Qatar today. We are live from Qatar, and Harry Kane's coming in any minute now to talk to us. Sorry, Johnny.
Look, as I mentioned, you know, this graph is obviously showing us generic performance of the UK market. The areas, as Pete's touched on, you know, that we as a business want to build and be a part of developing, are areas where we're performing higher than that average, higher than where the market is. And as Pete quite rightly said, you know, one of the agents that we work with in Crowthorne, who's going to be representing anybody that invests and renting them out, which they're incredibly excited about because of the opportunity, the location, and the facility of being able to rent them, is that these kind of areas are almost recession-free in a sense, in the fact that there's always such a demand. It's an affluent area, it's vicinity to London, it's vicinity to jobs, and you know, these are the kind of areas that always consistently hold their value, no matter what the market is doing. So yeah, it's a good point, and I completely agree with what Pete's saying. But look, we'll move on to the actual development now. So the property is called Manhattan Lofts, and look, I know the property from an investment angle, and it's great to have Pete on here, who knows it, I guess, more from a consumer level, because he knows the area very well. And so, Pete, you know, interject wherever and add bits that you feel are relevant. But you know, from the actual development itself, one thing we love doing, and this developer, they're called NJP. They've got a great track record of building small boutique developments, which we love. You know, when you're delivering developments that are 250 units, inevitably there's 250 units on the market when you come to completion. You know, there's an oversupply for a time being, and you know, eventually it will always work out because of the points we've touched on and quality of developers, etc. But having these boutique areas, boutique developments in areas with high demand, where these sites don't, you know, as Pete said, for us as the developers to be able to try and find these locations in these areas, it's gold dust. So we've been very lucky with what we found in Crowthorne. It's right in the village. It's behind the high street, and it's just 14 apartments, 1 and 2 beds, predominantly 1 beds in there, which is where the market is, which is where the demand is coming from. They've all got Juliet balconies, floor to ceiling windows, and they're all south facing. Every single apartment from the orientation is south facing. So you have beautiful amounts of light and beautiful views over the countryside, as well as a communal terrace as well, which is a large terrace. And I'm actually going to show you a video in a moment that kind of illustrates everything. So what you're getting here is a modern style apartment, which is the sort of new age of living, generation rent, within a village, which is incredibly rare, with vicinity to thousands of jobs. And as you see here, with access to London in just 44 minutes on a train. So it gives you so many different elements. You know, we're talking nowadays about a shift and a change in how people are living and where they want to live. You know, previously it's central location in the heart of the city because I need to walk to work and blah, blah, blah. Now, you know, in the UK, people at least 2 or 3 days a year, obviously given dependent on profession, are working from home. So having the ability to live in a place where you're in the countryside, where you can walk into a little village and have that sort of that lifestyle element is something that's incredibly attractive these days because of our change of how we're living and how we're working. Go on, Chris.
Johnny, how long is the walk from Manhattan to the railway station?
It's about less than a 5-minute walk. It's incredibly close. So everything is, you have all of the amenities. Although it's a village, it has plenty of amenities. You have your coffee shops, you have your supermarket, you have the train station close, you have, you know, everything that you would need from a day-to-day basis is there. So when we say village, you know, we're not talking about complete seclusion from everything. You do have your amenities, but obviously the benefit of it being a small community as well.
On that amenity space, by the way, if you're into golf, you're a winner. You've got 6 golf courses within a 5-mile radius: Bagshot Park, the Berkshire, Camberley Heath, San Martins, East Berkshire, and Downshire Golf. You've also got 2 country parks there. You've got the Lightwater Country Park, which is less than 10 miles away, and you've got the Wildmoor Heath Nature Reserve. It's superbly served.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm skipping forward here just to sort of go in line with what Pete's saying. Location wise, this is one of the most affluent areas in the UK. You've got Ascot 5 minutes away. You've got these beautiful forests. You've got some of the most incredible golf courses, as Pete's mentioned. So this really is at the higher end of the sort of market in terms of location, in terms of, surrounding areas. Windsor's 20 minutes away. It is a beautiful area. I mean, I'm just going to skip forward slightly, just to show you here the vicinity to these different locations. So you've got you've got Ascot, as I say, 5 minutes away. You've got Bracknell 5 minutes away. Obviously, you're connected on the line to Reading, which poses the opportunity for jobs. As we know, there's a lot of jobs there. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Bracknell and the opportunity that brings with its vicinity. But at the same time of all of these surrounding urbanized areas, as Pete says, you are in one of the most beautiful areas within the UK, countryside, golf courses, and all of those amenities that
Johnny, I'm from Fleet, so I'm just on that map. So I know
Crowthorne
very well. So it's a beautiful area. It's just surrounded with parks and trees and woodland, and it's a fantastic area. I haven't been there for a while, but I know it well.
It is.
Now you've got to
it is indeed. And look,
got some sound on this.
I'm going to show you a video now of the development, and this was from, as we mentioned, this is completed. So it completed last month. It completed at the end of October. The developer decided they wanted us to sell this ready-made as opposed to off-plan. So we have sold a couple of the units to existing buyers off market, but we're launching this now, which is the reason for this webinar. And so, there's still access to 12 of the units, and this is one of them. As I mentioned, all of the units are the same aspects. The way that the building has been created is that the corridor runs along the side, and then every single unit is on that side of the building, which gives it that south-facing, loads of light, beautiful views. So I'm just going to, hopefully this works.
The sound is not good, but I'll sing. Well, maybe you want to do a commentary, Johnny.
The sound's not on, right?
No, but it's okay.
Look, as you can see, look, floor to ceiling glass, views over the countryside. So you're at the back of the development. So this is the terrace, which is towards the front side, which is a communal terrace that anybody can use. And again, views over the countryside, it gives you a kind of aspect of what you're dealing with there. So look, I mean, we'll send obviously videos and for you to look in closer fashion. But one thing I want to reiterate from our experience with this developer is that, and as this comes on your screen now, they've got a great track record of delivering modern design in what they love to do is bring sort of history and modernity together and build these boutique small apartments. I've been to this site a few times now, and the first time that I walked in, I was incredibly impressed with the quality of the finish. And there's obviously videos and photos that we can send around after this to support that. But the dedication to their design, to their brand, to their image of what these guys do was the reason that we wanted to work with them. It's incredibly important, I think, within a market, not just to sort of build generic new build properties and in generic locations. It's about having something different, something small, something boutique, where you're not going to be flooded with another 100 of the same kind of design and caliber. So, as I
say, Johnny, as well, I think it's really important for all of our investors. You're talking about physical stock that's built. You're not talking about a site that's going to be ready in 2 years. And I think this is a real plus in this market. I've got my views, and I think the market's going to stay strong. And certainly, I totally agree with you on yields. But this is stock that your investors or the clients can jump on and get revenue day one, pretty much. I think it's so important. There's such a shortage of rental stock. We own 102, not with Holborn, but in my previous life, I've got 102 apartments down in Southampton. We haven't had a void now for 2 years of more than 5 days. The rents have gone up 18% in the last 15 months. You're going to see exactly the same now. When people can't afford to buy, they're not going to go live in tents. They're still going to want to live in an apartment. So you're going to see a yield shift slightly, in my opinion, but you're also going to see improvement in the rents. So I think this is a great piece of stock to buy. The other thing I highly recommend is don't hang around. There's only 12 of them. It's not one to pontificate where you've got 450 units that can come back next year. It's got to be gone by Christmas. And I'm not just saying that, it'll be gone by Christmas. So it is one of those to look at, review and think, no, this is great, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, look,
Pete, can I just come in there, Johnny? Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to bring Johnny in because although you've touched on mortgage and the mortgage service, I just wanted to bring Darren, the mortgage expert, in because otherwise he'll be just sitting there for nothing. So, Darren, what's going on? What sort of rates can we expect, and what sort of loan to value?
Well, because the units are completed, and obviously they are new build, then we need to be focused on 65% loan to value. But there are some we'll do slightly more than that. But actually, if we sort of focus on 65%, that gives us a bit of wiggle room between the two of them. There is actually some good news in the market at the moment. We've just had one of the big players within the UK mortgage market reduce their rates below 5%. We've not seen rates below 5% for a good couple of weeks, to be fair, which is encouraging. And once the bigger ones start doing it, all the little ones start doing it. So actually, I think, like Pete was saying, the market is going to be correcting itself, but actually the rates are starting coming down. So the lenders are understanding they've still got to lend the money. I think they just outprice themselves a little bit. So the rates have started coming down, which is great. The completed stock, this is actually brilliant because the clients aren't going to wait a year or two. They can actually see a physical property, which is also good for lenders because they can actually do the valuation quick. They're not waiting for a year or a year and a half. They can actually do the valuation straight away. And if there's been a few already sold and obviously it's completed, it means that they've got comparable evidence. A problem with when you've got new build stock where it's not quite finished, the surveyors are going down and going, how am I going to value this if I can't get any comparables? Whereas this one's completed. So like Pete said, it's not going to hang around too long. Valuations are going to be good. The lenders will lend, but you need to be getting in quickly, I would say.
Just a point as well. When we had this situation with the pound v the dollar, there's only two people that I know in the Holborn arena that really jumped on the opportunity. One is Pablo, that organises all of the golden passports. The other one is Mark McAllister, who managed to get money converted to dollars, from dollars, when it was down to 1.1, 1.12. I don't think we're going to see that pound shift. I think the pound's going to become stronger again. So no different than with that, where you've got to take your opportunity right at the moment. Don't procrastinate. You've got the same thing here. Once this is gone, we're not going to be able to come back and give you some more. I'm not just saying it because we want to sell them. I'm saying it because they're going to be gone.
Pete, can I just go back? I've got a question, please. Anybody got questions at the bottom of the screen? If you've got, Kieran's just raised her hand. Just back to you, Darren. Questions just come in. Fixed or variable? What's your opinion?
Lots of lenders at the moment, especially for expat clients, are offering tracker deals, so variable rate mortgages, mainly because they're being a little bit cagey. But the good news is a lot of these products that the lenders are offering at the moment, because they're still finding their feet, offer what's called a switch and fix. So it basically means there's no tie-in. If they go for a tracker deal now, if interest rates start coming down again and there's a better fixed rate in the marketplace, either with the same lender or a different lender, we can actually secure a fixed rate for them without any penalty. So there are some fixed rate mortgages available. And to answer your previous question, Chris, the rates are anywhere between 4.99 and 7.99, depending on where the client sits in the country, within the world. But actually, the average 5-year fix at the moment is about 5.2 for expats, which, to be fair, if you'd have asked me that same question 3 weeks ago, I'd have probably told you it's more like 6%. So actually, they are slowly coming down. But if you're based in the UK, the rates are just under the 5% of the mark, which is brilliant.
Thanks, Darren. Another question's just come in. Thank you very much. Can we have more actual facts about the development, please? Prices, lease, ground rent, some facts. Yeah. Over to you, Johnny.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. Absolutely. So we'll go into the finer details. There are two things I just want to mention. Firstly, as Darren mentioned, we have sold 2 of these already, and both of them were mortgage buyers. One of them was living in the UK, one of them was living in the Middle East, and both of them valuations, absolutely no problems, both from a rental perspective and from a valuation perspective. They actually both managed to get, well, the one in the UK got a 75% and the one over here got 70%. So that we know it's tried and tested that, and that, as Pete says, the fact that this is ready, it's completed, all of these kind of insecurities or worries that you can have from a mortgage perspective, you're tackling them from the moment that you deal with them. So yeah, there've been absolutely no problems with that, which is why it's great to be able to launch with a little bit of experience on it. So we've talked about the development. We're going to come on to units, etc. We talked about the location. It's a large village in the Bracknell Forest. Pete's obviously shared his knowledge of the area as well, which is great. One of the things to come on to is that the vicinity to Bracknell is important, just because Bracknell offers a huge amount of jobs. So we've got a couple of developments with 7 Capital in Bracknell, and one of them's delivered, which, as Pete talked about the development in Southampton. These rented incredibly quickly, void periods. The same in Bracknell. There's thousands and thousands of jobs 5 minutes away from this development. So and these are head offices of some of the biggest tech companies in the world that are around the corner. So you look at where your demand comes from. You've got this beautiful village, beautiful surrounding that we're talking about, but B, when you look at the fundamentals, you have thousands of jobs, and that's the beauty of it. You can live 5 minutes away from your head office, but you can get the beauty of living in a village as well. So this is where the demand's coming from. This is why it makes so much sense from an investment angle, and why we're so confident about it. Again, this regeneration in Bracknell is obviously really important. It's adding value to Crowthorne and the surrounding areas from everything that's happening, and the amenity and the jobs and everything that Bracknell offers is obviously affecting Crowthorne and these surrounding areas. Is there anything else you wanted to add on that, Pete?
No, I just think that, as you say, the employment companies, when you look at Honeywell, in my past, I used to work with Hampshire County Council. Honeywell was the only company that they dealt with where there was no limits on how much they would commit to them. It's one of the largest companies literally in the world, Honeywell, and all of that tech sector is on fire now, and it's going to remain so. There's endless amounts of jobs. There's 4 people for every job. There's 4 people really wanting every single job, and in the tech sector, that's a lot higher. I've got a friend who plays with this. Is it SAP? And his gig rates have now gone up to £2,500 a day. That's how much he earns on SAP. So
Wow.
You're talking about some very sensible earnings up there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we've done a lot in the Bracknell market, and we've delivered a lot. And so, it's been a tried and tested model for us. What it also means is we have agents within the area. So when we talk about the specifics of what you can see on your screen here, there's only 14 apartments, as we mentioned. We work with an agent on the ground in Bracknell that we've worked with for many years, as well as a handful of others. These guys, I went to the site with them, are desperate to rent these. So much so that we're actually saying that from the moment of reservation, by the time that you've actually completed on the property, it will be fully tenanted if you want it to. The only reason that we're not renting them all now is because if some people want to live in them themselves or use them themselves, obviously, we can't rent them straight away. So it's something that we're saying to everybody now. When you reserve a unit, instruct us if you want to rent it, and we'll have it rented by the time that you complete, because there's only 14 units. It's so easy to rent these. The agent are all over it. They're just always constantly asking us as soon as we sell one, let us know, and they'll start renting them. So really important. We've got all of that handled. They manage the property fully. So they're full management. They're down the road. They're 5 minutes away. They give us cheaper rates for management because we've given them so much business in our history. So it's a perfect combination in an area that's tried and tested with us, and we know they're a proven partner in their quality.
Johnny, questions just come in. Just sorry to interrupt you, but I like to answer these questions as they come in. When it comes to reservation, exchange of contracts, completion, how long and how do people do it? Is there a reservation fee, for example?
Yeah, so look, in terms of the process, obviously we can go on to that in the end. I mean, you pay a reservation fee essentially to lock in a unit. Say unit number 11 is the one that you wanted. You would lock in unit 11 by paying a reservation fee of £2,500, which isn't a fee. It's not a commission. it's a commitment. So say the value of the property is £250,000. Obviously, when you're making that payment and you're going along the completion, you deduct the 2,500. So in order to start the process with Darren from a mortgage perspective, with the lawyers from a contract perspective and exchange perspective, the first thing is you pay a reservation fee to lock in that unit. That means we take it off the market. One of the 14 is yours. You fill in a reservation form, and then you go and you start the process. And that's the beauty, again, of buying something ready-made, is that mortgage and the sales process goes hand in hand. It goes in tandem. So so that's a really important point.
Thanks, Johnny.
So yeah, so look on the screen, you can see, and again, just photos of the development, floor to ceiling glass, the way it's fitted out. The bathrooms are fitted really well, beautiful. The windows fully open and you have views over the countryside. It really is. It's an amazing sentiment when you walk into this development. And that's so important when you're renting it, when you're selling it. It's about the sentiment you get when you walk in. And light is obviously a hugely contributing factor to that, which is why every single the apartment, as I said, is facing this way that you see on your screen, floor to ceiling glass, huge amounts of light, and fully openable with Juliet balconies. So they're lovely, lovely apartments, as you can see from the photos, finished very well.
By the way, the other little point I picked up, it's only, as the crow flies, it's 16 miles from Heathrow. Yeah,
really close to Heathrow, about 20 minutes. So yeah, really, really easily accessible there. This is the roof terrace, as I said, which is communal. And look, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this now because it sort of works on an individual perspective, and I'd encourage you to speak to Darren perhaps about your borrowing capabilities and interest rates, because Darren can give an overview about the market, but it always comes down to the individual at the end of the day on your position and your passport and whatever else, other factors. So we can go through these, but we apply these based on all of your costs for this specific unit within this development. So this is using an example of a one bed at £231,000. So to answer one of the questions above, the prices in here vary from about 231 up to about 280. Which for me, when we first took hold of this and we were pricing it, I think for where it is and what it is, it is incredibly well valued. You're talking about £230,000 for a one bedroom unit in a lovely village next to some of the most affluent areas in the UK, next to all the jobs, close to Heathrow, for £230,000. We were incredibly pleased with the pricing.
My view is, from the research I've done, I think it's slightly underpriced, which is perfect, because it's going to pick up this slack we were talking about. If there is a 5, 6, 7% correction, you're already 2/3 of the way through that, because this is underpriced, and I genuinely believe that.
Yeah, look, I mean, one thing we all know here is from a valuation perspective, when the surveyor goes round, one thing that they're never going to do is give a higher valuation than what you were sold. All they want to do is give a lower one. And on the two that we've had, both of them were on point. And the surveyor even said to the agent that I was mentioning earlier, said there could have been more on top, is what he said. So I think that that kind of shows you and gives you sentiment of this. But JP, the developer we work with, have always been of the mindset that they would rather make sure that, for an unforeseen example, we don't want down valuations. We want to represent ourselves well. We want our investors to be happy, and it gives us longevity as a business. So that's really refreshing to deal with developers like that. Darren.
And just to sort of clarify that as well, when it comes to mortgages, a lot of these mortgage companies that are dealing with expats, or even the UK ones, they're all aligning to either one or another surveying company. So because it's in a Bracknell, you're not going to get a surveyor from Bristol trying to do a survey on a property in Bracknell, and they don't know the market. So actually what I'm finding at the moment is the lenders will find a surveyor, and if you've already had two already done, you might even find it will be the same surveyor that goes out numerous times for different lenders. So actually that makes it a lot easier for the development as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's again a tried and tested model for us in this area, and we know the area well because we've built a lot in Bracknell, and we know the market. And as Pete said, our first instinct with the pricing was that we probably could have gone a bit higher, but it gives an opportunity, and even more reason that these 14 units we know are going to sell quickly. To give some context to that, by the way, just to, rather than it's sort of being purely sort of based on a sales pitch. We launched a development in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago that was 16 units, and we expected to sell it in a month, and we sold it in less than a week, all 16 units. And that gives you an indication of how the market's moving. When there is a good opportunity, you know, people don't wait around, and with a distribution network all over the world, obviously that's
the same's going to happen with this, Jonathan. This is why, for all of those of you that are listening in, I can think of a few people we've been having conversations with. They should jump on this. This is going to be gone. I would suggest, I'd have a bet with any one of you, there won't be a unit left inside 2 weeks. I'm not just saying it. Please don't come back and say, well, we want one and it's gone. This is great stock at the right money.
Johnny,
Yeah,
perfect opportunity, and I saw the slide before. If you want to, I mean, Holborn, by the way, everybody, we've got 43 different projects, a lot with Joseph Mews and others. So please, you know, reach out. But opportunity, Johnny, the Grand Exchange, really successful. I know there were some units that came back on from the developer. How's that going? And do you want to give a quick update on that?
Yeah, look, the Grand Exchange is in the centre of Bracknell. It's a different development. It's 181 apartments. We sold 100 about 2 years ago very quickly. We've been given a final release of 30 units. It's a different development. As I say, it's in the heart of Bracknell, right in the town centre. It has a concierge, it has different amenities, but it completes in May next year. So it's a different context. I think that one thing I love about Manhattan Lofts is that it is complete. It's tried and tested. We know the demand, where it is, and where it really is getting yields from a rental value. We know it stacks up from a valuation perspective, from a mortgage perspective, and it's only 14 units. I can't help but stress how important that is. Having these smaller developments is incredibly attractive. Obviously, what we're building in it with the Grand Exchange with 7 Capital is amazing, and it offers that amenity and a lifestyle, and it has a gym, and it has all of those things. So it is fantastic. And for those people that are looking to put a deposit down now and wait a few months until they complete, then it's a great option, as are some of our others. But in terms of ready-made, ready to go, immediately yielding, tried and tested, this is the one, and at a price. To put it into context, the Grand Exchange started at 300,000. For a 1-bed.
I think also for Johnny, you know, I know the area, as I said. I'm thinking this is going to be for a young tech executive who wants to go mountain biking and trekking in the woods, but is going to be working in Bracknell. And I think it's a perfect combination. I really do.
Can I just say as well, I agree with Johnny about the fact that these smaller developments are the way to go just at the moment. You're going to be seeing quite a lot more of those from me. I'm working on 5 schemes currently that are all less than 25 units. And I think Johnny's right on the money with this sort of project. I think it's excellent. So it's got a USP about it. It's a little bit like Winchester. I mean, I know I live close to Winchester. Property never falls in value in Winchester. It might go down 2% and it come back up 6% the following year. It's no different than this site here. It's, you know, it's bomb-proof effectively.
That's great. And anything else, Johnny? Have you got any other slides after this, or have I got to thank you?
No slides. Just want to touch on a couple of the questions about the sort of the pricing. So as I mentioned, pricing starts at 230. They go up to about 270 to 280, depending on. There's a slight variance in size of the units. So obviously we can send information on that individually, but the rough ballpark is 230 to 280. The lease term is 150 years, but because it's a small development, everybody's going to get offered a slice of the freehold when they're all sold, which again will probably be, well, definitely by the end of the year. Secondly, it's peppercorn ground rent, which obviously has no value really. So as you're probably aware, the UK is changing to common lease. It's sort of going to be going through Parliament. I think, Pete, you probably know a bit more about this.
Yeah, it's the virtual freehold. You know, it's irretractable now. So everyone that on these smaller developments is slightly different with some of the leaseholds on the very large blocks, but all of these you're going to end up with a part of the virtual freehold.
Well, yeah, I think, Yasmin, I hope that answered your question. Thanks for asking. No price list, but Johnny's gone through that. So we will send out price. You can go back to your wealth manager, or if you're a client, then please contact us directly, and we can send all the information to you. One final thing, this webinar, I don't call it a webinar, it's a show, to be honest, will be on the website at Holborn Property investments. So look for that. It will be popped up probably tomorrow, as well as about 100 other property shows that we've done on there, including the Grand Exchange, Johnny. Actually, that's still on there. So please have a look at that if you want. The shows are on there. Otherwise, reach out and we can answer all your questions. And I agree with Pete. I don't think this is going to hang around long. And I know that sounds big salesy, but you know, I think I know quite a few people are going to be going for this. So, Johnny, thank you very much.
Yeah. From obviously we sold to existing clients that had a relationship with the developer, but we're actually going to market at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning UK time, taking reservations. So that's when we're going to start. So yeah, if there's any information required in between now and then obviously just ask and we can send everything over.
I would highly recommend some of you consider actually putting down the deposit. If you're in the market for this sort of stock, you know, I'm not going to be able to find you another one, not until probably March. So this is the opportunity now. And sometimes those opportunities come and go very, very quickly. And I'm not just saying it. I just think this is compelling, especially for those of you that are looking to start building a portfolio. This is absolutely perfect stock. If you're going to put together 5 or 6 properties over a 4 or 5 year period, this is a great first one to tuck away.
Yeah, and also nervous, you know, it can be a nervous sort of, you know, putting a deposit down on something that you don't know you can get a mortgage, or you don't know how it's going to value. Is it actually going to complete? Well, for people
it'll all work through. It'll all work through.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, everybody. Thank you. I've got Harry Kane has just arrived with Marcus Rashford, but you're going to have to wait, guys, because it's come to an end. So I'm sorry, everybody. I have to say we've come live from Qatar. Well done to England last night. Sorry to you, Welsh. All those recordings, as I say, Holborn Property Investments.com. Darren, thank you as always, your insight. Pete, you're always very well read. And Johnny, thank you very much indeed. Let's get rid of these 14 units in the next few days.
I would say the next 24 hours.
You would. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Miltos.
Bye.